Welcome in, everyone. This evening we have guest Shane Ratliff. He is not foreign to the channel here at Sports and Money KC, Pro Football Plus, but um, it's new for me because while me and Shane were on our podcast Odds on Favorite last week, we have not done anything YouTube related. So this is the first time me and Shane are doing anything on YouTube, just us together. Usually Ben and a couple others have been along with us with a couple of shows that you've done, whether you're watching here on Box Score. Um, we're glad to have you in. We're talking the Commanders' schedule. It just got released about 2 hours from the time of recording, and we are just here to give you our reactions to the schedule and a few other things. So we hope that you enjoy the ride. If you have any thoughts on the schedule or anything like that, leave in the comments section. We will reply to it as uh as your comment. Shane, how are we doing this evening? Good to have you on.
We're doing well. Thanks for having me on, Robertson. We've had a 2 week run. Let's keep up the good work and see what we can get out of tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ben will be back soon doing YouTube videos and stuff with me and him on our regularly scheduled stuff. We're gonna be putting more. Me and Ben are gonna be putting more on this YouTube channel than normal going forward. But we hope that you subscribe if you like this kind of content. No one can replace Ben. Sorry, Shane. But at the same time, we really enjoy having you on here. What are your kind of your so you're a Patriots fan, so you have kind of an outsider's perspective. You're used to a lot of attention, over the past 20 some years. Not so much recently, but it's kind of been your thing. This is not foreign to you. Unlike me, who has grown up a Washington fan since 2005, and when Gibbs came back, and that was as much attention as we got was when Gibbs came back, and I was like 5 or 6 years old. You know, now that we're getting, as you can see here with this schedule here, we're eight nationally televised games, five primetime games. Um, I mean, it's a lot, right? And that's what
Mhm.
a good quarterback does, as you well know. So, what is your kind of perspective on this from an outsider's perspective, and just your overall reaction?
Well, I think you hit on probably the most important thing right there, Robertson, is that this is and will continue to be a quarterback driven league. So if you make a right selection and you find one of those quarterbacks and he starts to produce early, you're going to start to get recognition. You're going to start to get, if it happens in season, you're going to start to get games flexed where all of a sudden you end up in a more important game. But as you mentioned, I mean, you look at this schedule for Washington. I mean, we're going to break it down a little bit later, but they are all over prime time. Like you are going to see them on nationally televised broadcasts. You're going to get to see them on Netflix. You're going to see them on the NFL Network. You're going to see them on ABC. You're going to see them on Fox. I mean, they're going to be everywhere. Um, as you said before, that's not something that Washington was accustomed to. I mean, in some ways, I think it makes it difficult because you're going to end up playing a schedule where your times flip and flop quite a bit because they won't want to play you 2 times at 1 o'clock. They'll want to move you around to make sure that you're going to be a nationally televised game, depending on who you play. And if you look at the schedule, that's exactly what happens. You're going back and forth between 1 o'clock and the 8 p.m. because you have a lot of night games. And so, unless you're playing back in the Central, not a lot of 4 o'clock or West Coast games for um, Washington this year.
Yeah, and I'll say this, I did look this up. So, first time that we'll be playing on Netflix. I know that's kind of a relatively new thing for the NFL that just started, I believe, last year, if not it was the year before, that they started doing games on Netflix. But it's the first time we'll be on there. First time we'll be in Madrid. We'll touch on that later. But I pulled some numbers. Dating back to 2019, so that was kind of the maybe not the low point, but it was pretty close to a low point for us as a fan base over the past 20, 25 years. Like as just an absolute travesty of a season. We were scheduled. I don't know if anything got flexed or not. So these are just what came out released with the schedule. 2019, we were scheduled 14 1 o'clock games. Okay. In 2020, we were scheduled for 13 1 o'clock games. Now that changed because of COVID. The Steeler game got changed. The season finale with the Eagles got changed, but scheduled, right? 13 1 o'clock games. 2021, we had 11 1 o'clock games. Same in 2022 and 2023, all 11 1 o'clock games. And last year we had 10 scheduled 1 o'clock games. Now, obviously, that doesn't include flexes or anything, but those were just the perceptions of Washington, going into those seasons where it's like, well, we can't really market these guys very well. They're not going to draw anybody in. We're not going to put them in a lot of primetime spots. This year, we have six scheduled 1 o'clock games. And I'm looking at this one and I see the Dallas game that can get well, that one can't get flexed because that's on Christmas Day, but the one with Philly on 12/20 that could potentially get flexed to, like a Sunday game or Sunday night game. Maybe not because of the Christmas Day game, but that could maybe still get flexed. The week 18 that can get flexed into something, and week
Mm-hmm.
14 against the Vikings that could get flexed. If the Vikings are, you know, JJ McCarthy's like on fire and it's a kind of a wild card race, I could easily see that getting flexed to a 425 or even the Sunday night game depending on what's going on that week, but
Mm-hmm.
there is a lot of potential for this. So we have six 1 o'clock games scheduled, five primetime games, three additional nationally televised standalone games, and then three 4 p.m. starts. And looking at those, only one of them is due to a time zone issue, and that
Mm-hmm.
when we're going out to LA to play the Chargers. The other ones, I mean, we're at Dallas, so those are usually around 4:25, but still, that could be a 1 o'clock game. And then you have Detroit, which that's a standalone doubleheader game on Fox. So I mean, the NFL is clearly like, yeah, we need to get these guys in front of the national audience, and that is foreign to me. Like that's just not a thing that we have dealt with in the past. And
Mm-hmm.
as a fan, at least the younger fan base, I would consider myself part of the younger fan base. I'm happy about it. I'm it schedule wise, it's like, okay, I gotta schedule my weekends and stuff around this now. But like, man, it's awesome to have this. Where it's like we're finally getting recognized because it's worth being recognized. Jaden Daniels has
Mm-hmm.
been that guy. So I'm ecstatic about it.
Well, I mean, from like you're saying with the young fan perspective, Robertson, I mean, if you were a Washington fan before, most seasons, if you don't have NFL ticket, you're maybe seeing Washington play Dallas, but you're certainly not going to catch any other games.
Yeah,
Where I live, you'll see them face the Giants because Fox will play a Giants game regardless of anything else in my neck of the woods. But this year, I mean, you probably could make a case, especially, anywhere other than if you're in a blackout region, you could legitimately watch a Redskins game or, a Washington game every single week
yeah,
because they're going to be prime time, and Fox is going to pick them as the more interesting team if you don't have a regional game being played. So, um, yeah, I mean, if I'm a fan of Washington, I think not only if you're looking from a betting perspective, but from the NFL perspective, they're saying Washington's going to be a moneymaker for us. So we're going to make sure that Jaden Daniels gets played as much as possible. We're going to show that all you need to do is be a great ownership group and see how easy it can be. And I'm sure that Roger Goodell will push that as well because I think he's gonna push that story more this year than they did last year. Last year was, hey, we really came out of this, and Jane Daniels caught on fire, and it's a little bit of a mystique situation. I think this year they're gonna go full boat in culture change. Look at what this team can do. Look at how you can set yourself up if you put the money in and you reset the standard. Um, Goodell loves to be able to stand behind that shield and beat that drum. And Washington, for a good number of years during his reign, has been one that that ownership group has been a thorn in his side, and I think it's one that he's very happy to have out. And then to have a winning team just helps him to be able to push that forward in the type of ownership groups that they're going to reach out to in the coming years.
So we'll get into the ebbs and flows of the schedule here in a few minutes, kind of deep dive into that here. I did want to get your opinion on the international game in Madrid against Miami. So
Mhm.
I was listening to Rich Eisen earlier today. Dan Quinn was on the Rich Eisen show earlier today talking about, a variety of things. And at that time during that interview, the Madrid game had been announced, and Rich Eisen does a lot of the coverage in these international games for NFL Network and all that. And he said that a lot of coaches and a lot of teams and stuff that he's interacted with during these international games, especially when there's a new location that the NFL hasn't been with previously, um, they say it's like the Super Bowl for that area. And like the
Mhm.
energy is just akin to the Super Bowl. And he's had multiple coaches tell him that, multiple teams tell him that. So what seems like I don't want to say an easy game because Miami is such a wild card, especially, like if they're on this offensive hot streak and all that. It seems like one of the easier games on the schedule, which is saying something about the difficulty of the schedule, but that's going to be a ramped up game, and I just wanted to get your reaction to just the opponent and the location.
Well, I think we'll take care of the opponent first. Like you said, Miami has a chance to put 63 points up on the board and give up 72, or they can get shut out. If they don't hit hot and two is not playing well, they're in a lot of trouble. So it could be, a tough game depending on how their season's going. Uh, like you said with Dan Quinn and with Rich Eisen saying, like, when you go to these new places and the fan appreciation and the people who never got to see a game in person, I think all that's great. The biggest thing I've worried about, and I've noticed it not only in international games, but if you're playing a Super Bowl on a field that normally doesn't have to, it is really the playing surface.
Mhm.
Um, Madrid has an outstanding stadium that they're going to be playing in, so it's not as much of a worry. But yeah, there's a big difference between soccer, as we call it, European football, whatever how you want to break it down. But the size of the players, the speed, the beating that the grass surface takes, um, and you see a lot of players falling, slipping, things like that. So I'm always interested to see how those games go, and I feel like as it progresses, the second time you're in Madrid, they get a little bit of a better feel for it. They get a little bit more of an understanding. But I always find that those games end up normally being pretty sloppily played.
Mhm.
So it'll be interesting for that. I think Madrid is going to show up for it. I mean, this is before your time, Robertson, but when they used to have the old World League, where it was NFL Europe, Barcelona and teams that were in Spain always played well and had good outcomes. So I think you have an embedded uh, fan base that's going to be interested in that. And the other thing is, as much as we talk about travel in the United States, um, for you to be able to travel by train uh, to Madrid, you could have people from Germany that this is going to be no problem for them to make this game.
Mhm.
It's a hop, skip, and a jump from England. Some of these countries that have had international games time and time again, you're going to get them as a vacation because I can tell you late in the season in England, it's not going to be the same as it is in Madrid to play at 9:30 in the morning. So there will be people signing up to just be a part of that. And I think, again, that shows you where Washington is. They're one of the teams you take a choice. You're going to make a move up there. I think Miami was picked because you're already going to have a built-in Spanish population. Not that most of it is Spanish from Spain, but that you can easily push that into the Miami market. The NFL, as much as they want to play that, some of these choices aren't made for that reason. it's definitely part of it. You're going to be able to have people that can play right into that. You're going to have a built-in radio team that already broadcasts in Spanish all the time, and you'll play that throughout. Um, so I think it'll be real interesting on how that plays uh, as an entertainment side. And I also think, by week 11, it'll be interesting to see where the Dolphins are. I think Washington, even with a tough schedule, is going to still be a solid team, but Miami might be a fire by then. And if they are, I think this is a game where you can put it on them pretty bad too.
Well, I would hope so, but again, as you mentioned, and it's been a problem at every international stadium is the footing. So what should be just based on the two strengths of or the strengths of both of these teams is offense. Um, what should be a shootout could be like a 20
Mm-hmm.
to 17 like struggle fest because of the field conditions and they gotta either put on, uh better cleats or they got to switch up the game plan or whatever it is, or a lot of turnovers, a lot of fumbles, whatever it ends up being. We've seen that happen before, where these offensive juggernauts go overseas and then it's not nearly the same of what it is at home.